The Blackthorn Mountains were known for making travelers vanish, as if the earth swallowed them. Local people spoke of the peaks, with lowered voices crossing themselves whenever storms gathered over the jagged heights. Yet Cale had not spent 3 years as a wandering scholar by obeying superstition. He had learned that the most valuable truths hid in the very places people feared. The cathedral revealed itself at dusk, rising through the mist like a corpse climbing out of a grave. It should not have existed. No maps mentioned it. No folktale spoke of it. Yet there was ancient and wrong, its black stone walls absorbing the fading daylight. Gothic towers reached upward like claws twisted by centuries of storms and neglect. Gargoyles leaned forward from their perches, their hollow eyes carved away by time and rain. Cale exhaled a cloud of mist as sudden cold gripped the air. Summer still held the lower valleys, but here winter had never lifted. Veins of frost spread across the cathedral doors, and when he pushed them open, the hinges screamed a sound that echoed without end. Inside waited darkness. Cale lit his torch, and the flame trembled, fighting against a chill that felt unnatural. The nave stretched ahead, vast and empty. The pews had decayed into fragments. Stained glass lay shattered, leaving jagged shards of color in the stone frames. But the walls were what stole his breath. Every surface was covered in carved warnings. He recognized languages, long dead scripts from civilizations that had fallen before his earliest ancestors were born. They repeated themselves, overlapping with desperate insistence. Turn back, sealed by divine order, disturb, not the crucified, let her hunger in darkness, the mercy of silence is eternal. His torchlight reached the center of the cathedral, and Cale's heart forgot how to move. She hung in the air, 20 feet above the ruined altar. No cross held her. She simply floated, her arms spread, her head bowed. Iron nails as thick as his thumb pierced her wrists and ankles, driven through pale flesh that had not bled for centuries. The metal was dark with rust and something older. Chains wound around her torso, etched with symbols that hurt to look at, pulsing with a faint red glow matching a heartbeat that should not exist. She was beautiful the way storms were beautiful, terrifying, magnetic, impossible to look away from. Her hair fell like midnight silk, veiling her face. She wore the remnants of a gown that might once have been white, now faded to gray by age and dust. Her skin was marble pale, flawless, except where iron penetrated it. Cale should have fled. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to close the doors, to erase this place from memory. But he was a scholar, and scholars sought answers. "Who did this to you?" he whispered. The cathedral seemed to hold its breath. Then her head lifted slowly, as though the motion cost more strength than the world could spare. Her hair slipped aside, revealing features so perfect that ancient statues looked crude in comparison. High cheekbones, full lips drained of color, cracked with age, and eyes like fallen gods. Her crimson eyes opened fresh blood in their hue, ancient as dying stars, and filled with so much pain that Cale's chest tightened. She looked at him directly, not through him, not beyond him, but into him, and her gaze pressed down with physical weight. 1,000 years of agony lived in those eyes, 1,000 years of hunger and loneliness and waiting. Her lips moved soundless, yet he understood the words. "Help me." Reason collapsed. Training vanished. Cale ran across the nave without thinking. He dragged a broken pew beneath her, climbed onto it, though she still hovered out of reach. He added another plank, then another, building a shaky tower. The carved warnings seemed to pulse, screaming without sound, but he climbed anyway. Up close he saw the nails clearly. They had not simply been hammered through her. They had been forged with her in place, bonded to her bones by magic he could not comprehend. Runes marked the nail heads, glowing faintly with fading light. His hands trembled as he reached for the first one. Her eyes widened. She tried to speak, tried to warn him, but only a cracked whisper escaped. "Don't." He grasped the nail in her right wrist and pulled. The scream that broke from her throat shattered 3 remaining windows. It was suffering made into sound. 1,000 years of torment released in one breath. Cale's ears rang, blood sliding from one ear, yet he held on. The nail resisted, held by more than iron. Sparks of magic burned his palms. But he braced himself and pulled with everything he had. The nail came free with a sound like splitting bone. Thick black, ancient blood ran from the wound. Her arm fell limp, and she sobbed, a sound more unbearable than her scream. Relief, grief, hope, despair, all woven together. "I'm sorry," Kale gasped, already reaching for the second nail. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." You don't know, she tried to say, but he was already pulling. 3 more nails, 3 more screams, each weaker than the last, her voice failing as her prison broke. When the final nail hit the floor, the chains around her went slack, their symbols flickering once before dying. She fell. Kale caught her, and it was like holding air. She weighed almost nothing, as if centuries of starvation had hollowed her completely. She collapsed against him, shaking violently, her fingers clutching his shirt with fragile desperation. "What have you done?" she whispered against his shoulder. "What have you done?" Before he could answer, cold slammed into him like a blow. The temperature dropped violently, frost blooming across the floor in intricate patterns. His breath turned solid, his lungs burned. Something moved in the shadows beyond the torchlight. The cathedral had never been empty. It had been waiting. She was crying, not tears her body had forgotten how, but with soft, broken sounds no immortal creature should make. Kale held her tighter, ignoring the cold gnawing into his bones. Her skin was ice, yet beneath it he felt something ancient fluttering weakly, trying to remember life. "You have to put them back," she gasped, each word fought for the nails, the chains, before it is too late. "I'm not putting anything back," his voice sharper than he meant. "No one deserves this." Her crimson eyes snapped to his face, and for the first time he saw something beyond pain in them, surprise, confusion, and a dangerous flicker of hope. "You do not understand what I am." "I know enough," Kale said, glancing at the wounds on her wrists, already closing, skin knitting itself unnaturally fast. Vampire. The thought should have terrified him, and maybe it would later. "Someone hurt you, trapped you here. I do not care what you are. No one deserves 1,000 years of that." A laugh escaped her, sharp and broken. 1,000 years, yes, 1,000 years of darkness and hunger and silence. She looked at her hands like she had not seen them in centuries. "I thought I had gone mad, that I had finally shattered, but you are real, you are truly real." She lifted her hand, trembling, hovering near his face. "May I?" Kale nodded, unable to speak. Her touch brushed his jaw light as breath filled with wonder. "Warm," she breathed. "I had forgotten warmth existed." Her hand fell. "My name is Seraphine." Kale adjusted his hold, trying to ease the pain in his back from supporting her. "Can you stand?" "Do not know," she murmured, but she tried, pushing herself upright with determination, like iron beneath her fragility. Her legs failed instantly, and Kale caught her again, one arm around her waist as she leaned into him without resistance. "It seems 1,000 years nailed to a wall is not exactly good training." The dry humor in her voice pulled a smile from him. "Even now, we will go slowly." They made it only 3 steps before her stomach twisted with a noise like fabric ripping. Seraphine folded forward, gasping, and when she lifted her face again, her eyes were different. The crimson had sunk into a deep black, the shade of fresh spilled blood, and her lips had drawn back to reveal fangs, delicate, sharp, and desperately hungry. "Please," she whispered. "I have not fed. I can smell you. I can hear your heartbeat. You should run." Kale did not run. He should have. Every instinct he possessed begged him to drop her and sprint for the exit. But he had seen her eyes before hunger drowned them. He had heard her voice pleading for him to flee, not because she wanted prey, but because she feared herself. "Look at me," he said softly. "Seraphine, look at me." Her head snapped toward him with the speed of a predator, and her whole body shook from resisting the urge to move closer. "You are a fool," she hissed through clenched teeth. "A foolish, compassionate man." "Probably," he said without backing away. "But I did not free you so you could starve or so I could run from you. I could drain you before you took 3 steps. Could you?" he asked, watching her face the battle raging behind her ancient eyes. "I do not think so. I think if you're going to lose control, you already would have." A tremor passed through her entire form. Slowly, painfully, the darkness faded from her gaze, though the fangs remained. Her shoulders slumped with exhaustion. "You trust too easily," she whispered. "Maybe." Kale helped her sit on the broken altar. "Yet here I am still alive, so maybe I am not terrible at reading people." Seraphine laughed softly, and this time the sound almost resembled something human. "A good judge of character. I am a vampire who was crucified and buried in a forgotten cathedral. That suggests I did something monstrous enough to deserve eternal captivity." "Did you?" he asked. She stared at him for a long, silent moment, searching his face. Then she looked away. "I defied the Blood Council. They govern our kind with absolute power, and I refused to obey. For that I was called anathema, stripped of my titles, sealed here to starve forever." Her voice grew faint, distant. They wanted to make an example of me, to show what happens when one of us chooses mercy over tradition. Mercy, he repeated. They commanded me to join a ritual of feeding so vast, it would have killed thousands of humans. She met his eyes. I refused. Something shifted in Kale's chest. You were punished for not taking part in mass killing. Vampires call it balance. In survival, she said, her expression turning cold. I called it slaughter. So I paid the price for a conscience. Before Kale could respond, the cold returned worse than before. His breath appeared in white bursts. Frost raced up the pillars. Every shadow thickened unnaturally. A sound rolled through the cathedral, a low, resonant growl that made his teeth ache. Seraphine's head jerked upward, fear flashing across her features. The seal broke. The guardians woke. She seized his arm with surprising strength. We must leave now. Guardians is what the council used to ensure I stayed imprisoned. She pulled herself upright, swaying, but refusing to fall. They bound wraiths here. Spirits of murdered vampires twisted into hunting beasts. If they catch us. A shape rose from the darkness at the far end of the nave. It looked vaguely human, but wrong in every way. Two tall limbs, too long face, an empty void where eyes should be. It drifted across the floor like smoke given weight. Then another appeared. And another. Out the side entrance, Seraphine gasped, moving despite her weakness. There's a tunnel. They ran. Kale's torch struggled as they fled through a narrow passage with walls pressing close. Behind them, the wraiths screamed a noise that did not travel through his ears, but directly into the oldest part of his mind. It was fear turned into sound. Seraphine guided them through the twisting corridors, relying on instinct and memory. Her hand gripped his tightly, cold and shaking, but never losing hold. They burst out a side door into the night, mountain air warm compared to the cold inside. The door slammed shut, frost sealing it instantly. The wraiths howled once more, then faded. They stood, breathing hard in the darkness. Seraphine's legs failed, and she collapsed to the frozen ground. Kale dropped beside her, his hands shaking. I told you, she whispered. You did not understand what you have done. Kale looked at her, this impossible creature who had suffered for refusing to be a monster, and he found himself smiling. No, he said softly. I knew exactly what I was doing. Her crimson eyes met his in the starlight. Why? Because it was right. Seraphine stared at him, as if he had spoken something impossible. Then she breathed a soft, almost inaudible thank you. Kale took her hand. This time he felt a faint pulse under her skin, slow, uncertain, but real. We should keep moving, she said. The wraiths cannot cross the cathedral walls, but the council will sense the broken seal. They will send hunters. Where do we go? Kale asked. Seraphine looked toward the distant peaks, where darker shapes rose against the sky. Somewhere I swore never to return, she said, her jaw firm. The Obsidian Citadel. It is the only place with knowledge powerful enough to. She stopped suddenly, her gaze locking on him. She was truly looking at him now. Kale followed her stare to his own hands. They were turning blue. Not normal blue, but dark crystalline patterns spreading under his skin like frost on glass. The color crept higher with every heartbeat. No, Seraphine breathed. No, this cannot be. What is happening? He asked. Her face drained of all color. The curse, the seal, was not only a punishment for me, it was a protection for anyone who tried to break it. Her voice cracked. I try to warn you. Anyone who frees me shares my burden. The ice enters you, freezing you slowly from the inside. She gripped his arms, trying not to panic. How long did it take you to remove the nails? I do not know, 10 minutes, maybe 15. Then you have 3 days, maybe 4, she said, tears forming in her eyes, real tears this time. In 3 days the ice will reach your heart, and you will freeze solid forever. Kale stared at his hands, the blue, now reaching his elbows. He did not feel pain, only a cold presence growing within him with every breath. Is there a cure? He asked. Seraphine said nothing, but the silence was answer enough. Then she stood, her weak legs holding with determination, stronger than her failing body. The Obsidian Citadel, she said. There are ancient writings, their rituals, old power. If anything can save you. She pulled him to his feet, her grip fierce. I will not let you die for freeing me. I will not let you die because of mercy. She stared toward the northern peaks, and something awakened in her crimson eyes, not only determination, but fury, purpose, a queen, remembering who she was. We have 3 days to cross 200 miles of cursed wilderness and break into the stronghold of the vampires who try to execute me, she said. A dangerous smile touched her lips. And if they stand in our path, I will show them why I was their queen. Kale felt his heart stagger at the word queen, yet Seraphine was already moving, pulling him into the darkness. Behind them from the sealed cathedral, the howling started again, louder, angrier. They ran into the night. A mortal who doomed himself with compassion, and the vampire queen he had set free. And with each step the blue crept higher up his arms. By sunrise, Kale's arms had turned the color of winter sky, and he no longer felt his fingers. Seraphine watched him open and close his hands in repeated attempts to bring back feeling to flesh that had turned nearly lifeless. Every effort took more time than the last, and the creeping blue beneath his skin kept advancing in slow, merciless patterns. They had chosen a hollow between two giant stones for their temporary shelter, hidden from the trails that cut across the mountain slopes. Seraphine needed night to move without danger, and Kale needed rest before his failing body surrendered completely. Still, neither of them found any real sleep. "Tell me about the curse," Kale said, breaking the heavy quiet. His own voice sounded distant to him, thin and hollow, as if the cold had spread into his throat. "What exactly is happening to me?" Seraphine sat across from him, holding her knees close to her chest. She still appeared half-starved, fragile, like something made of delicate glass, yet her eyes had regained an ancient sharpness. "It is blood magic," she said, "the oldest kind. When the council bound me, they wove a curse into the iron spikes. Whoever pulled them free would inherit a piece of my punishment." She turned her face away. "The ice is not natural cold. It is the absence of life, the shape of entropy. It hardens your blood and freezes your flesh at the smallest scale. In 3 days it will reach your heart and stop it in mid-beat, and then you will remain caught between life and death without a vampire nature to sustain you. You will simply stop forever." Cheery, Kale muttered. He studied the blue lines spreading under his skin. They looked almost beautiful in a terrible way, like intricate frost patterns across glass. "And there is no cure." "I never said that," Seraphine replied, meeting his gaze. "I said the council wanted to ensure I would never be released without great cost, but they are arrogant. They trust too much in their own power, and arrogance always leaves blind spots." "The Obsidian Citadel," he murmured. She nodded. "Before I was sealed away, I had access to archives that reach back to the very first vampire. Knowledge the council keeps hidden because they believe only they should possess it. Counter curses, forbidden rituals, ways to unravel blood magic at its core." Her expression shadowed. "But entering the Citadel will not be easy. And if they realize who I am before we reach the archive, then—" "We will handle it," Kale said, trying to sound bold and nearly succeeding. "You said you were their queen." The word tasted strange on his tongue. "For 6 centuries I ruled the Eternal Court," she said. "I kept order between vampire and human, enforced the old laws meant to protect both. Then the council, 5 of my oldest advisors, insisted the laws were chains. They wanted expansion and domination, a return to the ancient age when we hunted humans like livestock." Her hands curled into fists. "They brought their plan to me during the midnight gathering. They demanded I approve a ritual feeding that would slaughter thousands to stretch our immortality." "And you refused," Kale said. "I exiled them," she answered with a sharp, bitter laugh. "Stripped them of rank and land and banished them from court. I hoped that would end it. But they had been preparing for decades. They had allies, hidden loyalties, ancient vampires who longed for the brutal past. Within a month they overthrew me." Her voice became empty. "My own guards betrayed me. They dragged me into that cathedral, pinned me with iron forged from my crown, and left me to starve in endless dark while they told the world I had lost my sanity to blood hunger." Kale felt anger burning through the cold in his veins. "How long ago?" "I stopped counting after the first 100 years," she said. "Time stops behaving normally when pain never ends." She glanced at her wrists where no trace of wounds remained. "But judging by the stonework, at least 1,000 years, maybe more." "Then they likely believe you are dead or too broken to matter," Kale said. "They are mistaken," she replied. A sharp hunger passed through her expression. "I kept myself awake through every moment of those long centuries. Most of my kind would have gone wild and turned into hollow creatures of instinct. I refused. I endured because I swore that if I ever escaped, I would destroy everything they built." Her gaze dropped to his blue-stained hands. Guilt washed over her features. "And now you are dying because of me." No, Kale leaned forward, ignoring the stiffness creeping through his joints. I am dying because the council set a trap for anyone with enough compassion to free you. That is not the same. You were a stranger. You owed me nothing. Neither did you, he said, gesturing at the silent mountains around them. You could have run the moment we escaped the cathedral. You could have vanished and left me with this curse. But you stayed. Seraphine looked away, something fragile passing across her face. I have spent 1,000 years alone. I am not abandoning the first person in an age who showed me kindness. The words settled between them, heavy and quiet. Cale felt something shift in his chest, something warm and frightening. He hardly knew her, this ancient, dangerous being capable of killing him in an instant. Yet when he looked at her, he saw someone who had endured suffering beyond imagination and still chose mercy. Cale lifted his wrist toward her, trusting her, without hesitation, even though she warned him he should not. The blue veins stood out sharply in the pale morning light. Besides, he said, a little blood loss is nothing compared to freezing to death. At least this way I can help. She stared at his wrist, as if it was both deliverance and condemnation. When she finally spoke, her voice was almost silent. If I do this, it will be intimate. Blood magic forms connections. You will feel my emotions. I will be inside your thoughts. Good, Cale said with a faint smile. Then you will know I mean it when I say I trust you. Her last bit of resistance fell away. She held his wrist carefully, as if she were afraid it might break. Her fangs slid out sharp and elegant. This will hurt. I know, he answered, and then she bit. Pain shot through him, instantly followed by something he could not describe. It felt like falling and rising at the same time as his blood ran into her, carrying his heat and life and something far deeper. He felt her hunger, immense, ancient, and aching, yet beneath it he sensed her control, rigid and unyielding like iron holding back a raging sea. Her feelings washed into him, guilt and sorrow and gratitude and wonder, and the crushing solitude of 1,000 years made a little lighter. For a moment they were not human and vampire. They were simply two souls connected. Seraphine drank deeply, though never enough to endanger him. Cale felt the exact moment she began to pull away, fighting against instinct, and he pushed his wrist closer, urging her silently. Take what you need. Her eyes opened, crimson burning, as they met his. She heard him through blood, not words, but intent. She took another swallow, then one more, and forced herself to stop. Her lips were stained red, yet her skin looked more alive than before. She looked less like a corpse and more like the predator. She truly was dangerous and breathtaking. Are you all right? She asked, her voice stronger now. Cale felt weak and dizzy, but undeniably alive. Yes, he said, better than I have been in 1,000 years. She looked at him with something close to awe. You let me in completely. No hesitation, no fear. Should I have been afraid? He asked. Most humans are, she said. Even when they agree, there is always a part of them that resists. She touched the place where her fangs had pierced him, and the wounds were already sealing under her saliva. But you simply opened as if this was familiar to you. Cale shrugged, though his head spun. Maybe I am too foolish to realize the danger. Or maybe he let the thought fade. She did not finish hers either, but something undeniable had changed between them. Their bond was now woven through them in ways he could not fully comprehend. She eased him down to the ground as the weakness from blood loss pulled at him. Rest, she said. We move when night comes. The citadel is 3 days away. The earth trembled, then a low shiver through the mountains. Birds burst from the marsh trees in panicked flight. A longhorn blast echoed faintly above them, vibrating through Cale's bones. Seraphine went completely still. No. What is it? He asked. The hunt, she whispered, her face stricken. The council knows I am free. They have called the blood hunt. Every vampire in the region will be searching for me. She dragged him upright with sudden strength. We run now. I thought we had 3 days, Cale said. That was before they sent an army, she replied, grabbing their supplies. Now we have 1 day, maybe less. If they catch us before the citadel, she did not finish, but Cale saw what she meant in her eyes. He would die, and she would be crucified again, condemned without end. They fled. Behind them the horn sounded again, closer. As dawn grew stronger, Cale glimpsed countless shapes, weaving through far trees, all heading toward them. The hunt was on. The Shadowfen marshes lived up to their dreadful name. Cale's boots sank into black mud that smelled of sulfur and rot. Every step was a fight. His frozen muscles barely obeyed him. The blue had climbed past his shoulders, spreading across his chest like veins of winter. His heart beat slowly, heavy, each pulse a reminder that he was running out of time. Seraphine moved with certainty ahead of him, navigating the marsh with ease. The blood she had taken had revitalized her. She walked straighter, moved faster, and her eyes glowed with fierce, predatory strength. Yet Cale felt her fear through their bond, a steady undercurrent of worry matching his own. They had been moving for 18 hours, stopping only when Cale collapsed. The horn had sounded 3 more times, each one nearer than the last. The blood hunt was closing in. How much farther? Cale gasped his breath, turning white, even though the marsh was thick with humidity. Another 12 miles to the pass, she said. She looked back at him, her face darkening. You are getting worse. I'm fine, he lied. You are blue to your collarbone and barely standing, she said. That is not fine. She stopped, facing him fully. In the dim, filtered light of the marsh, she looked sculpted from pale stone. We have to talk about the ritual. What ritual? He asked. The counter curse, she said, the one in the Citadel archive. She drew a deep breath. I did not tell you everything. There's always something else, Cale said with a faint laugh. The curse is blood magic, she said. Breaking it demands an equal price, life for life, blood for blood. The ritual merges my essence with yours, burning out the ice with my immortal nature. It is called the Covenant of Thorns. If it succeeds, you will live, but you will never be human again. Cale's heart slowed for a moment. What will I become? I do not know, she said. The ritual has only been attempted twice in recorded history. Both times the results were unusual. A hybrid, neither human nor vampire, but something in between. She looked down. You will gain some strengths, longer life, sharper senses, faster healing, but you will also carry our weaknesses. Sunlight will not kill you, but it will hurt. You will crave blood, though not as heavily as we do. And she hesitated. You will be bound to me forever. Our lives woven together by magic. If I die, you die the same. Might be true the other way. The texts were unclear. Cale absorbed all of this with a mind slowed by cold. So my choices are freeze to death in 2 days, or become a hybrid tied to you for the rest of my life. Yes, she said. He should have been terrified. But watching this ancient creature who had endured a millennium of agony struggle to save him, he felt no fear at all. Will it hurt? He asked. That is your question, she said, startled. I am dying from the inside out, Cale said. Pain does not scare me anymore. So will it hurt? Yes, she answered softly. She studied him. Do you truly understand what you are choosing? You will never be normal. You will be something other, and you will be connected to me, a hunted queen with enemies everywhere. Your life will be dangerous, complicated, and strange. Sounds better than dead, he said. Be serious. I am, he answered, stepping closer, ignoring the sharp ache in his frozen joints. 2 days ago, I was a wandering scholar with no family, no home, and no purpose beyond curiosity. Now I am dying, yes, but I am also running alongside an immortal queen, escaping an army, and preparing to break into a fortress made of black glass to perform an ancient ritual that might transform me. He laughed, sounding slightly wild. This is the most alive I've felt in years. She looked at him gently. You are mad. Probably, he said, but I freed you, and I would free you again. So I accept the ritual. Let us save my life and defy the council. She stared at him for a long, quiet moment. You are extraordinary, she said. Before he could speak, his legs collapsed, and the blue had reached his neck. Seraphine caught him with effortless strength, and he felt her fears spike through their bond. I need to feed again, she said. Your strength is fading, which weakens our bond and weakens me. We're linked now. Your death could harm me, maybe kill me. So dramatic, Cale muttered, but he was already trying to pull up his sleeve. His fingers were too numb. She brushed his hands aside and rolled the fabric up herself. This is becoming routine, she said. Good practice for when we are bound forever. A laugh slipped out of her before her face turned serious. This time I need more, she said. You are colder, so your blood is losing potency. I must drink deeper. So you might drain me, he said. I will not, she answered, her crimson eyes fierce. I swear it. And he believed her. Their bond carried her determination, her control, her absolute refusal to harm him. Do it, he said. She bit. This time the sensation swallowed him whole. Their minds meshed deeper. He felt her hunger, her guilt, and her awe that someone dared to trust her so completely. Her fear poured through the bond, raw and shaking terror, that she might fail him, that he might die, simply because her strength was not enough. You are strong enough, he pushed at her through the bond. You endured 1,000 years. You can endure this. Her answer washed back into him gratitude, determination, and something softer hidden beneath her usual steel. She drank from him, and Kale felt the pull drawing his warmth, his life, his mortality into her cold, immortal body. Yet beneath that flow he felt another presence, the curse itself, a living thing, aware, hostile, dragging him toward endless frozen sleep. Seraphine sensed it the instant he did. He felt her flinch, then force herself to strike back her vampire essence, meeting the cursed magic directly. It was not enough. The curse was ancient and deeply embedded, but her magic slowed it, held it at bay, buying them hours they desperately needed. When she finally lifted her mouth away, her lips, stained red, both of them were panting. "Did it work?" Kale asked. "It bought us time," she said. She looked at his veins, and the blue had stopped spreading. "Maybe 6 hours, but it is moving toward your heart. We must move faster." She dragged him upward, taking nearly all his weight. They pushed through the marsh at a pace that would have exhausted any healthy man. For Kale, it was pure torment. Each step felt like shattering ice. Every time he faltered, she caught him. Whenever he thought he would collapse, she pushed strength into him through the bond her while carrying him forward. They reached the edge of the marsh as dawn bled across the sky. Ahead, the mountains rose dark and jagged, and high on the tallest peak, the obsidian citadel shone. The first light of sunrise turned its black glass walls into molten fire. It was enormous, impossible, beautiful, and terrifying. "We are close," Seraphine said. A few more hours, and the horn sounded again, this time from ahead. They stopped. Forms appeared through the mist, figures moving in a wide formation across the mountain path. Vampires, at least a dozen, blocking the only route. More approached from the sides, encircling them. Seraphine, a smooth, cultured voice, called across the marsh, warm, in the way poison is warm. "What a delight to see you. Rumor said you had risen unfortunately." A tall vampire stepped forward, silver-haired, handsome, in a cruel way, his eyes cold as stone. His crimson robes bore the sigil of the Blood Council, and on his brow a crown formed of frozen blood. Seraphine went rigid. "Lord Varian, please," he said mockingly, "we are family. No reason for such formality." His eyes slid to Kale and widened with laziness. "And you brought a pet. How adorable, though he looks rather unwell." "Let us pass, Varian," Seraphine said. "Oh no, you are a fugitive, my dear. A queen who murdered her own advisor, or so the old records claim. We cannot allow you to spread confusion." He motioned, and the circle tightened. "Surrender, and I promise your companion's death will be swift." Kale felt her fury burning through the bond, bright and fierce. But beneath it she was calculating. They were surrounded, she was still weakened, and he was dying. Fighting meant death. "What do you want?" she asked. Varian smiled wider. "Everything I've always wanted. Your throne, your power, your absolute ruin. But I am generous. Give me the human. Let me end the curse and reclaim what you stole, and I will let you flee. Exile instead of execution." Kale spoke, his voice stronger than his body. "He did not steal anything. You did 1,000 years ago." Varian looked at him, mildly amused. "It speaks. How cute." He turned back to Seraphine. "Is this mortal worth your life? He will be dust in decades." "He saved me," she said. "He doomed you," Varian replied. "The instant he shattered that seal, he unleashed consequences you cannot escape. Be rational, Seraphine. You are not a queen anymore. You are nothing. Let him go." Kale felt her waver. Felt her weighing everything, her revenge, her pride, his life. Through the bond, he pushed one thought hard enough to sting. "Do not dare." Her head snapped toward him. Their eyes locked. He faced Varian, yet spoke to her. "We do not bargain with traitors, and we do not surrender. That is not who we are." A wild fire lit in her crimson eyes. She turned back to Varian, and her voice carried the full weight of 6 centuries. "No." Varian sighed. "A shame. I hoped for better." He lifted his hand. "Take them. Kill the human. Seraphine comes alive, though her condition is yours to decide." They attacked like shadows. Seraphine shoved Kale behind her and met the first vampire with brutal force, throwing him into 2 more. But she was still recovering, and there were too many. Kale tried to help, and immediately learned how useless he was. Half his body felt dead, and his movements were slow. A vampire struck him aside without effort, and he hit the ground hard, seeing light burst behind his eyes. Through the chaos, he watched her fight. She was terrifying and glorious, every movement deadly. But she was outnumbered. For every enemy, she broke 2 more closed in. And she was fighting while shielding him, limiting her reach, refusing to leave him exposed. A blade slashed across her shoulder, and she cried out, red spilling. She staggered, and the pack tightened like wolves, sensing weakness. Kale tried to rise and failed. The curse owned him now. His heartbeat was faint, his skin nearly frozen, the blue up to his jaw. He was dying, and she was losing because of him. "I am sorry," he pushed through the bond. "I am so sorry." Her answer struck back, fierce and unshakable. "Do not apologize for saving me." Then a horn sounded again, deeper, older than the others. The attacking vampires paused, confused. From the citadel, a new group emerged. These vampires moved with discipline and precision, wearing black armor, marked by a crest Kale did not know. They formed a wall between Seraphine and the attackers. A woman stepped forward, short, strong, dark-skinned, with silver-white braids, and a voice filled with authority. "This hunt is unsanctioned. Lord Varian, you have exceeded your command." Varian snarled. "Lady Morwena, this has nothing to do with you." "Oda," she replied. "You are hunting a former queen without council approval. That is treason, unless the council changed its stance since dawn." Varian hesitated. Calculations flickered across his face. At last he motioned, and his followers stepped back. "This is not finished," he said. "It never is," she answered. Varian vanished into the mist with his forces. Silence settled. Morwena faced Seraphine, and her expression softened. "Your Majesty," she said, and sank to one knee. Her entire legion knelt with her. Seraphine stared, stunned. "Morwena, you still?" "Some of us never stopped being loyal," Morwena said, rising. "Some of us have waited a very long time for you to return." Then she looked at Kale, his skin blue-veined. "And you have brought complications." "He freed me," Seraphine said. "And he is dying because of it. We must reach the archives." "Then we move now," Morwena said. Two armored vampires lifted Kale with careful hands. "The council is in emergency session. News of your return has set the citadel into chaos. We have an hour at most before Varian regains control and comes for you officially." She met Seraphine's gaze, and everything in her expression sharpened. This was the moment. The one chance to seize back her crown or fall in the attempt. Through their bond, Kale felt the storm inside her. Fear clashing with resolve. Her desperate need to save him, battling her hunger to finally face the traitors who destroyed her life. His lips were numb, but he managed a faint smile. "Go save the world," he whispered. "I can wait." "No," she said, her voice steady and unyielding. "We finish this together. Both of us live, or neither does." She turned to Morwena. "Take us to the archives." "Now." Morwena bowed. "As you command, my queen." They moved swiftly toward the citadel, the loyal vampires carrying Kale between them, while Seraphine stayed at his side. The sun climbed as the obsidian citadel blazed like dark fire against the morning sky. Beyond its walls waited either salvation or execution. Kale's vision fractured at the edges, the cold seizing his heart, slowing every beat. Their time had run razor thin. The citadel rose from the mountain like a weapon carved from night. Up close, its vastness became unreal towers, spiraling upward walls of shining obsidian, and spires carved with symbols that hurt the eyes. Kale's fading senses saw everything too clearly, as if the curse was pushing him toward the threshold between life and death. Morwena led them through a hidden seam in the stone, a narrow opening that revealed worked tunnels beyond. Inside, the passage's vaulted ceilings glittered with crystals that glowed softly, and ancient tapestries displayed triumphs, tragedies, and nightmares from forgotten eras. Vampires drifted through the corridors, but fell silent when Seraphine passed, watching her with awe, fear, and uncertainty. "Rumors are spreading faster than wildfire," Morwena murmured. "Half think you're a ghost, half think you're an imposter." "And what do you think?" Seraphine asked, though Kale felt the tightness of her anxiety through their bond. "I think you're exactly what we need," Morwena said. She guided them down a spiraling stair. "The council rots from within. Vine rules through terror. Everything you build has been twisted. The young don't know any other way, but the old ones remember the queen who held mercy and strength in equal measure." They reached a landing where enormous doors waited, carved with shifting patterns that pulsed with blood wards. The surface glowed in a rhythm that matched some ancient, unseen heartbeat. "The forbidden archive," Seraphine whispered. "You still hold the key?" "Not officially," Morwena said, pulling out an obsidian pendant, "but I kept yours." The wards trembled, resisted, and then parted. The doors opened into darkness. Kale collapsed completely, and the vampires lowered him gently. His skin was almost entirely blue now, only his face left untouched, and even that was fading. The cold had reached his throat. His heart barely whispered. Seraphine dropped beside him, cupping his face. "Stay with me," she ordered, her voice cracking. "Just a little longer." Trying, he gasped, though he could hardly move his tongue. "But I think I'm nearly out of little." Through the bond, her terror crashed into him, but beneath it something stronger burned her refusal to let him die. "Morwena, I need him." Searching already came Morwena's call. Light flared inside the archive. Rows of ancient shelves stretched, endlessly filled with tomes bound in materials that shouldn't exist. The Covenant of Thorns. Yes. The binding ritual. Yes. "Hurry," Seraphine urged. Kale clung to breath as the ice tightened around his heart. Each beat weaker, each inhale harder. Death hovered at the edges of his vision, patient, almost gentle. Kale, Seraphine's voice pulled him back. She was crying crimson-stained tears. "Don't go. Please. I can't lose you." Not after. Her voice broke. Not after someone finally saw me as more than a monster. He wanted to tell her everything he felt, but his lips wouldn't move. The blue had reached his chin. "Don't leave me alone again," she whispered through their bond. "Never," he answered, pushing all his love into the single word. Found it. Morwena emerged with a huge tome bound in something disturbingly like preserved skin. "But there's a problem." "There's always a problem," Seraphine muttered. "What is it?" "The ritual needs 3 things. Your blood, his blood, and a catalyst, the heart blood of a vampire elder, given freely. Someone ancient. Someone who remembers the old magic." "You're ancient," Seraphine insisted. "Not ancient enough. This requires a first-generation elder. And there are only a handful left." Morwena said, "All of them on the Blood Council." Silence followed before Seraphine let out a grim laugh. "Of course. Nothing could be simple. Which council member is closest?" "You're not serious," Morwena said. "Ask one of them to help save the human they want dead." "Do I have a choice?" Morwena's face hardened. "No. Kieran is in his tower. He's the least loyal to Vian, and he owes you a life debt. If we reach him before Vian seizes full control, then we move now." Seraphine placed Kale's head down to rise, but he forced a weak sound. "No." She froze. "You need to tell them." "Tell who?" "What?" "Everyone. About the betrayal. The truth." Each word cost him pain. "You're not just saving me. You're reclaiming your throne. Stop hiding." Seraphine stared at him. Understanding rippled through their bond. He was right. Sneaking through shadows wouldn't win her kingdom back. She needed to be seen. She needed to be queen again. "You're right." Seraphine rose, and the shift in her presence was immediate. Her posture straightened, her gaze sharpened, her voice regained its ancient authority. "Take me to the grand hall, the public one." Morwena's eyes widened, then she smiled fiercely. "As you command, your majesty." For vampires lifted Kale now, carrying him like he was something priceless. Seraphine strode openly through the citadel, and crowds scattered before her. Whispers raced ahead. "The lost queen has returned." By the time they reached the great hall, hundreds had gathered. At the far end, on thrones of bone and iron, sat the 5 members of the Blood Council. Vian, the center, occupying what had once been hers. His face twisted with fury the instant he saw her. "Caesar," he ordered. No one moved. Vian's rage deepened. "I commanded you." No, a voice said from the council's right side. An older vampire stood, harsh features carved by time. "You gave an order." She gave command. "Lord Kieran," Vian spat. "You overreach." "Do I?" Kieran said. "Or do I remember when this throne belonged to a true queen instead of a pretender wrapped in stolen crowns?" He descended towards Seraphine. "Your Majesty, I wondered if this day would ever come." Seraphine met his gaze. "Lord Kieran, I need your help." "I know," he said, glancing at Kale, taking in the dying blue. "The curse is nearly complete, minutes left." "Then will you help me break it?" Kieran hesitated, the hall silent. Finally he nodded. "I will, on one condition." "Name it." "You reclaim your throne. Challenge Vian here and now. If you and I give you whatever you need." "I'm tired of kneeling to cowards." The hall erupted with clamor. "This is treason," Vian roared. "This is justice," Seraphine answered, her voice slicing through the noise. 1,000 years ago I refused to murder innocents, and for that you betrayed and imprisoned me. While I languished in agony, you built an empire on fear." She looked around at the gathered vampires. "I did not return for vengeance. I returned because this human found me in torment and chose mercy. And now he is dying because of your loss. He's dying because he broke a sacred seal," Vian snarled. "He's dying because you turned compassion into a crime," Seraphine shot back. Power rippled from her, Even weakened, she was breathtaking. I ruled for 6 centuries, she said. I kept balance. I protected our people without drowning the world in blood. She walked toward the dais step by step toward Vian, and the throne stolen from her. Yes, Lord Kirin, I accept your terms. I challenge the council, and I will reclaim what is mine. Vian laughed harshly. You're weak, starve half dead. He drew a blade shimmering with blood magic. You want a challenge? Trial by combat. Now, and when I kill you, we'll mount your head on the gate. Seraphine looked at the weapon, then at him, and smiled. On one condition. What? I name a champion. Vian blinked. Impossible. Ancient law states the challenged may choose a champion, Seraphine said. She turned to Kale. And I choose him. The hall exploded with outrage. He's dying. He can't even stand. It's suicide. Kale, lying on the cold floor, heart barely beating, laughed a thin, breathless laugh. Through the bond, he felt Seraphine's plan, her desperate gamble, and he understood. Morwena, Seraphine, order perform the ritual now. We don't have enough time, Morwena began. We will, Seraphine insisted. Seraphine knelt, took Kale's frozen hand. Kirin promised his help if I reclaim my throne, she said. I'm doing that now, which means he gives us what we need. She looked at Kirin. He stared back, and something old unspoken passed between them. You're insane, he whispered. I'm desperate, she replied softly. Please. He saved me. Let me save him. After a long silence, Kirin drew a dagger and sliced his palm, letting ancient blood pool. Perform your ritual quickly before Vian understands. Morwena opened the tome, reading words older than civilization. Seraphine sliced her palm, then Kale's, then pressed their hands together. Kirin added his blood. Power detonated through the hall. Kale screamed as ice and fire collided inside him. The curse fought to freeze him solid, but the ritual overpowered it. Seraphine's essence surged into him, blending with his fading humanity. Kirin's ancient blood bound them together like a bridge. Kale felt his heart stop, then start again, beating to a new strange rhythm, not human, not vampire, something between. The blue drained from his skin. Air rushed into him clean and warm. Strength filled his veins. Through the bond, Seraphine's joy nearly knocked him over. He opened his eyes. They glowed silver blue, lit by magic he didn't understand. It worked, Morwena whispered. Kale stood. His body obeyed effortlessly. His senses expanded until he tasted the fear, hope, and ancient dust in the air. He looked at Seraphine and felt everything inside her